how does this chiropractic thing work? Like, what are you doing something different, special? Why? I understand, okay, you've got pediatric training, yet all I see chiropractors for is when my neck and my back hurts. I don't understand, like, my kid doesn't have a bad back. What's going on? What are you going to do that's different? You know, I understand therapy, like physical therapy to stretch something, and I understand occupational therapy to help with movement, speech therapy, a tutor, right? They're helping with a very specific event or a very specific issue that your child has. But very few times do we zoom out and look at the whole picture. Instead, we're like, ooh, behavior, right? Parenting, discipline. Ooh, over here, learning. Let's get a tutor. Oh, over here, gut. Let's talk to the GI specialist, right? We just pull our body apart and try to examine one thing instead of look at the whole. Look at the physiology in the body. The nervous system is responsible ultimately for their perception, or its perception of what's going on. It's acting and reacting accordingly. So what we don't think about is, what kind of feedback is my brain getting? Well, it's making choices to either heal, maybe get defensive and protective and have outward behavior, or be lethargic and not be able to digest food, have a hard time building up the immune system. We have to look at the nervous system, which controls everything, and say, okay, is the foundation good? Is the nervous system clear? When it is, and if it is, now let's go look at a specific organ and gland. If there's misfiring between your gut and your brain, well, then we know we're going to have side effects of that. We know we're not going to digest our food well. We're going to have tummy aches. We're having constipation, maybe diarrhea, maybe reflux. So taking a broader approach to the nervous system first is really going to help the body do what it's already designed to do, which is self-heal, self-regulate, and be healthy. Many times we are managing our circumstances rather than creating what kind of future we want. And that nervous system is the master control system. It is the one thing we can have the biggest influence over, instead of putting all this time and energy into every single symptom. Now, is there a possibility that we still have a symptom left over later once we've cleared the nervous system, to say, man, my child or myself had worked ourselves into such a state of stress, my adrenals need some support. They're really fatigued. They've healed to a point, but we've drained them so much. Do we need some cellular support there and a supplement? Absolutely. I am not discrediting any sort of diet, exercise, supplementation, therapy that you do. What you're going to have is a limited capacity, and you're going to hit a plateau if that nervous system is dysfunctioning. So here's what you need to know about the nervous system. It has a stress response and a healing response, and those two responses have to be in balance. Our stress response is a wonderful thing to have under stress. Exercise is stress. Playing a soccer game is stress. Learning can be stress. So can eating the wrong foods, playing too many video games, getting yelled at, right? Have an emotional outburst. That can all be stress. They're all going to add up. A birth that was highly intervened and extremely stressful for mom. Absolutely. Those are all stressors, and they activate our fight or flight response. Being uncomfortable as an infant, unable to nurse and latch, that's a stress. And it all takes away from the healing response. See, these two systems are inversely proportional. If stress is high, healing's low. Now you have a healing system that you're asking to be activated when your stress response is high. We're wiring our kids for stress, I'm not telling you it's a choice that you've hardwired your child for stress, but the circumstances have. And now you're like, okay, I'm over here changing the diet. I'm adding in supplementation. I'm changing my bedtime and my parenting routine. And we just boom, 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 hit the ceiling and plateau at where we hope they are, where we want our relationship. We're like, why is this parenting thing so hard? Well, typically it's the use it or lose it mentality. If we've overstrengthened and put all our energy into stress, this healing, when this might be a 4-lane highway, the healing is a dirt path. Now, all of a sudden, you're lining that thing in gold, right? Because you know the money you're putting into every single thing you're trying to get your child to do to heal. You're like, organic food, this supplementation, this essential oil, this therapy, this tutor, this parenting class. And you're like, this street is lined in gold, but we're still congested. We haven't widened it. We need it just as strong as the sympathetic response to get a really good healing response out of your child, to have a resilient and adaptable nervous system where they can respond to stress. And then they have a system that can say, hey, stress is over, sister. Calm down. We're over here. Everything's fine. Self-regulate. Bring yourself back down to neutral. It needs that strength. And that's really what chiropractic is designed to do. The latest research, which if you've been on my page and watched any of the videos by Dr. Haavik, which is Haavik, and I know that doesn't sound like Haavik, she is the leading researcher in chiropractic care. She came from a Western medicine family. Chiropractic helped her. She wanted to know how. She wanted to prove to her family what she was doing wasn't quackery, right? It was something legit. And how is it happening, right? Because we're picturing getting adjusted by a chiropractor and something shifts in the spine, right? Like things are better. I have great posture, whatever it is. That bone doesn't hurt anymore and everything's straightened up. Awesome. But why am I in a better mood? How can I move so much easier? How come I'm more adaptable? How come I'm not so angry or anxious? Or how come I can think so much more clear? How can I communicate well? How can I see brighter colors and connect with humans better? How can I have this outward energy instead of this inward turmoil and conflict that's happening? Well, she found out that it was changing the brain, the prefrontal cortex, which does executive functioning. So she gave us a really easy analogy. She put her hand in a fist and said, here's the front of your brain. This is your prefrontal cortex. We'll call it your lid. Here's the middle of your brain. This is where we process a lot of stress and fight or flight, or you could call it your hindbrain. When we are under stress, our prefrontal cortex, excuse me, that is designed for us to move our body with ease, to think through a process, to pre-plan, to goal set, to feel safe and comfortable in our environment, is loosened. It's disengaged, if you will. Now, we can have just a little disengagement, right? I talked about these two systems getting on a balance. We're like, oh, I'm a little irritated. I'm a little bit more impulsive and reactive. My blood pressure's up. My heart rate's up. I'm feeling like all this energy. I'm getting amped. Like, energy's going to my muscles. I can feel my face getting flush. We can go to full-blown fight or flight. Complete impulsivity and reactivity. We all know people that have been there. We've been there ourselves, right? We're trying to communicate logically, but usually we're getting like our lid's coming off. We call this blowing our lid, right? Our lid's coming off and we're trying to connect with our child and we are like, right? And then just everybody's angry, right? Everyone's lid's off. No one is having this nice, calm conversation. And nor are you going to have a nice, calm conversation when someone's lid is entirely off. And you usually know that because your kid's having a meltdown, your spouse is angry, and you're like, arguing with our lids off is getting us nowhere and just wasting energy, right? So you usually have to wait until they self-regulate. Sometimes people are like, I don't think they can self-regulate, right? Some tantrums, I sit across from parents who are like, last 4 freaking hours. And I can't imagine that. But I do remember my child having really long meltdowns and trying to change my parenting style 1 billion times. And I felt so lack as a parent. I felt so inadequate to be his mom. I was like, what on earth am I doing? This tough love isn't working. This loving insecurity isn't working. This sticker chart sure didn't work. The tutor didn't work. The adaptations his teacher was trying to make weren't working. So I had to look deeper and say, why is this happening in the first place? And I had to change my position as a chiropractor of looking at athletics and kind of muscles and joints and look at the nervous system, look at the physiology and say, ooh, that needs to change. Now, how many adjustments, how many reminders does our body need to build up the strength in both systems? Because there are some kids who also don't have a great stress response. They've overutilized that stress response to the point of lethargy. Or their system was already tanked at birth. We're like, man, I had the calmest baby, right? There's just big bear, just nurse and sleep. He's so calm. And as a kid, like now they're not reaching the motor milestones. Now they have really low body tone. Now they don't have any ambition, right? We need these systems to be equally strong. And we create customized care plans based on the results of your child's neurological scan that are going to stack. They're going to put the lid on. They're going to strengthen both systems so that they can be resilient, so they can be strong. When I tell people, hey, you know what? Your child probably doesn't need a new routine and a new supplement and a new exercise and a new therapy. While they may, and it may help, they need a new reaction to their environment. And that happens through a nervous system and neuro-focused adjustments. It doesn't happen through cracking someone's back at a chiropractor that you walk in and out of for $20. And I say that because I care. Because I know, because I was that chiropractor, that doesn't work. I was adjusting my child that way for 3 years of his life until, actually, I got up to about 5, until I was highly trained in what to do. And he was my first patient to say, this is what needed to change. His reaction started to change. So his nervous system started to change. And then we started to see all those wonderful moments that we were hoping for, that we would get little glimpses of, come out in him. And that's what I want for you. I want you to know that this neuro-focused adjustment and this care to the nervous system is so important. It might be the most important thing you ever do in your child's life to set them up for success. I'll see you soon.